Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into some IELTS skills today.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at IELTS reading,
Uh-huh.
and this is kind of geared towards people who are just starting out with IELTS or,
Beginners.
yeah, beginners, exactly.
It can be kind of overwhelming at first.
It can be really overwhelming.
There's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it, and we're going to break it down step by step
Yeah.
and help people really understand.
Giving them the tools.
Give them the tools to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, So why don't we start with like a good overview? Like, what is the IELTS reading test? Like, what does it look like?
So picture this. You walk into a room, you sit down, and they give you 60 minutes
Oh, wow.
to answer 40 questions based on 3 reading passages.
3 reading passages. Okay.
And these passages get progressively harder as you go.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, they test your reading comprehension skills and your speed.
That's a marathon.
It really is like a mental marathon. So
Yeah.
you got to pace yourself.
Wow. Okay. So 60 minutes, 40 questions, 3 readings.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty intense.
It is.
And so there are different versions of the IELTS, right?
Right. There's the academic IELTS, which is made for people who want to study at a university level.
Okay.
And then there's the general training IELTS. And that one's more for people who are thinking about migrating to an English-speaking country
Got it.
or maybe pursuing some vocational training.
Okay.
And each one uses different types of reading material. So you got to make sure you're prepping for the right one.
Right. So you got to know which one you're going for before you even start.
Exactly.
Okay. It's super important. Okay. So we talked about like what the test looks like, the different versions.
Yeah.
What about like some of those reading skills that are like really important?
Okay. So you've probably heard of skimming and scanning.
Yeah, like what are those?
Right. So skimming is basically when you read a passage quickly just to get the general idea.
Okay.
You're not reading every single word you know.
Right.
You're just focusing on things like the headings, the subheadings, the first and last sentences of the paragraphs.
So you're trying to get like the main idea?
Exactly. The main idea and the flow of information.
Okay, so that's skimming. What about scanning?
Scanning is kind of like using a searchlight, you know?
Oh, okay.
You're looking for specific information in the text. So let's say you need to find a date or a name or a particular keyword. You're not going to read the whole thing.
You're just going to like look for that?
You just scan it, looking for that specific detail.
Okay.
It really saves you a lot of time.
So skimming, big picture, scanning little details.
Exactly.
Is there ever a time when we actually need to like read the passage carefully?
Absolutely. Sometimes you'll get questions that require a really deep understanding of a particular part of the passage.
Right.
And that's when you do detailed reading.
Okay.
So you really slow down, pay attention to the language, the connections between ideas.
Really dig in.
Yeah, you got to dig in, especially for those complex questions.
Okay, so we've got our skimming, our scanning, and our deep dive reading.
Right, the toolbox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, different tools for different jobs.
Now, I know there are like a bunch of different types of questions
Oh, yeah,
on this test, and they can be kind of tricky. Can
definitely.
you maybe like break down some of the most common ones and like how we should approach them?
Sure, let's start with multiple choice. Those can be tough.
Yeah.
You really have to analyze those options and find the best fit based on what you read.
Yeah.
One good tip is to eliminate the obviously wrong answers first.
Oh, okay.
That narrows it down and gives you a better chance of picking the right one.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, what about like true, false, not given questions? Those always get me.
Those are tricky. They really make you compare the information in the statement with what's actually in the passage.
Okay.
So if it matches what's in the passage, it's true. If it contradicts, it's false.
Okay.
But if the passage just doesn't mention that information at all, then it's not given.
Okay.
And it's so important to just stick to what's in the passage. Don't make assumptions.
Yeah, don't read into it too much. Okay, cool. What about matching headings? I feel like those always trip me up.
Matching headings is all about understanding the main idea of each paragraph.
Okay.
So you skim each paragraph to kind of get its essence right.
Yeah.
And then you choose the heading that best summarizes that main point.
So it's kind of like you're giving it a little title?
Yeah, a mini title that sums it up.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What about sentence completion questions? Any tips for those?
For those, think of yourself as a word detective. You got to figure out what's missing in the sentence.
Okay.
Then scan the passage to find words or phrases that fit both grammatically
Okay.
and logically, and often the answer is going to be a synonym or a paraphrased version of something that's already in the passage.
So they're not going to come right out and say it.
Right, exactly.
I-
You got to do a little detective work.
All right, last one. What about matching information questions?
Those require you to connect specific info in the question with its location in the passage.
Okay.
So you carefully scan for keywords or phrases from the question.
Uh-huh. And then you got to find the exact spot where they talk about that.
So we're going to be very precise.
You got it.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground today already.
We have.
And I know it can be a lot to take in.
It is a lot.
So we talked about the format, the types of questions. Now let's get into some strategies.
Yeah, because, we only have 60 minutes to answer all these questions.
Yeah, that's right. Time management is super important.
It's like a race against the clock.
It really is. So one approach is to allocate a certain amount of time for each passage.
Okay.
Aim for no more than 20 minutes per passage.
Okay, so break it up evenly.
Yeah, it sounds like a short amount of time, but you got to make sure you have enough to attempt all 3 passages.
Right, you don't want to run out of time.
Exactly. And another tip is don't get stuck on hard questions.
Oh, yeah, I do that sometimes.
We all do. If you're struggling with one, just move on.
Just skip it.
Yeah, and come back to it later if you have time.
Okay.
It's better answer all the easy ones first and get those points.
Get those points, yeah, and maximize your score.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good tip because I tend to really get in there and try to figure it out.
Yeah, you can waste a lot of time that way.
Yeah. What about skimming and scanning? Can we use those to save time too?
Definitely. Those are your secret weapons.
Okay.
Use skimming to get the main idea of each paragraph quickly,
Right.
and scanning to find the specific info you need for the questions.
Okay.
You'll save so much time by not reading every little detail.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's talk about vocabulary.
Yes, vocab.
Because I've heard that having a strong vocabulary is super important for this test.
It is super important, especially for the academic IELTS.
Okay.
You got to be able to understand all those complex texts.
Right, all those big words.
Yeah, so what can you do to build your vocabulary?
Yeah, what are some good strategies?
One great resource is the academic word list. They call it the AWL.
Oh, the AWL?
Yeah, it's basically a list of words that are commonly used in academic textbooks.
So it's like a cheat sheet.
Kind of like a cheat sheet, yeah. Familiarize yourself with those words and you'll have a huge advantage.
Okay, so get to know the AWL. What else?
Another important skill is recognizing synonyms.
Okay.
The IELTS loves to use synonyms in the passages and the questions.
Uh-huh.
So if you can spot those words with similar meanings, you're golden.
Okay, so think about different ways of saying the same thing.
Exactly.
Got it. And any other fun ways to improve vocab?
Yeah, keep a vocabulary journal.
Oh, I like that.
Write down new words you come across, definitions, example sentences.
So you can remember them?
Yeah, it's like your own personal dictionary.
I love that. Okay, so time management vocabulary now. What about practice? Is that important?
Practice is essential. The more you practice, the better you'll get at the format, the questions, the time pressure.
Yeah, because it's anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Exactly like training for a marathon.
You got to put in the miles.
You got it. So what kind of materials should you use for practice?
Yeah, what do you recommend?
IELTS practice books are great, like the Cambridge IELTS series.
Oh, yeah, those are really good.
Yeah, they have authentic practice questions, and they help you get used to the format.
Okay, so Cambridge IELTS series. What about online resources?
Definitely check out the British Council and IELTS.org.
Okay.
They have tons of free resources, practice tests, sample questions, tips, you name it.
Free is always good.
Yeah, and you can find more stuff on educational websites and YouTube.
So lots of resources out there.
Tons of resources.
Now, we talked about simulating test conditions earlier. Why is that so important?
It's all about getting used to the pressure of the real test.
Right.
So time yourself, find a quiet spot, no distractions, no phone.
Oh, pretend you're actually taking the test.
Exactly. It helps build mental stamina and focus.
Okay, so a dress rehearsal?
Yeah. Exactly. A dress rehearsal for the big day.
I like it. Okay, so before we move on to our last section on focus and review, let's just do a quick recap of what we've talked about. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different strategies and skills.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
But now I want to talk about something that I think is super important, and that's focus.
Oh, yeah. Focus is huge.
Especially for this test, because there's so much information coming at you.
It's like a mental marathon.
It is. So how can we improve our focus? How can we really get in the zone when we're studying and when we're taking the test?
Well, one thing you can do is create a really good study environment for yourself.
Okay, like what does that look like?
Find a quiet spot where you won't be interrupted. Turn off your phone, get
Yeah.
rid of any distractions.
So no TV, no music.
Exactly. You want your brain to know it's time to focus.
Okay, so like a dedicated study space.
Exactly.
What about training ourselves to focus for longer periods of time? Because this is a long test.
Right. We'll start with shorter study sessions, maybe
Yeah.
like 15, 20 minutes, and then gradually increase the time as you get better at focusing.
So like build up your stamina.
Exactly. Consistency is key. The more you practice, the better you'll get.
Okay, so start small and then work your way up.
Yeah, just like training for a marathon.
I like it. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about review because I think that's another really important part of this whole process.
Absolutely. Review is so important. It's not enough to just practice. You got to go back and look at your mistakes,
Right.
figure out why you got certain questions wrong, and see where you need to improve.
So like analyze your performance.
Exactly. It helps you get better and feel more confident.
It's like having a coach who can help you see what you're doing wrong.
Exactly.
So any tips on how to make those review sessions more effective?
Definitely keep track of your scores and how you're doing over time.
Okay, so like a progress chart.
Yeah, that way you can see what you're good at and what you need to work on.
So you can focus your efforts.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of really valuable information today.
Yeah, I think we gave them a lot to think about.
I hope so, and I really want to encourage everyone listening, like, this test can be challenging.
It can be.
But if you put in the effort, you use the right strategies,
And you stay positive.
you could definitely succeed.
Absolutely.
So don't give up. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, we believe in you.